I consider myself very lucky that I get a lot of students who are so excited about going to competitions, and obviously it's a great platform for them to, to have exposures on such wonderful platform, especially this year. I mean, just so many, I imagine tens of thousands of people are watching. And so that's always a wonderful opportunity. But most importantly, it really is a test to their skills and their learning. And obviously, I'm really happy for them that a lot of them can get through and be able to showcase their talent.
Yes, of course. As a piano prodigy winning competitions yourself, do you suggest there's a difference in the artists nowadays and then the artists back then at your time?
Well, of course, it's very different times. I think both commercially and both musically, I think the world of music is very, very different. And so I think it does take a little time to get used to the world today, and I feel that today young musicians really need a lot more skill socially to be able to navigate this world of music. And I think because the world is changing very fast, our technology is changing very fast, so there are always things that's happening. I mean, even through this whole pandemic, there are many different technologies that's coming up and that we had to adapt to. And some people can survive by capitalizing some of these new technologies to showcase their unique talent. So it's kind of interesting, I think, in ways that I feel that we have to think also about how this world of music is going forward in the future. Like what it's going to look like, we don't know, but we certainly hope that we still can maintain the level of classical music. I mean, when I think about, many years ago when I was a student, I mean, it was just a pure excitement. It's really pure excitement to be able to witness, let's say, a concert, a recital played by a legend. And I even remember going to Horowitz's concert at the Met in New York, and I was sitting in the last row. And it was just breathtaking. I mean, it was really a learning experience, and it's those things that make it memorable. And in a certain way, I think I was very lucky that I had witnessed a lot of really legendary pianists who had performed, and in a way, it's interesting. I kind of perhaps consider myself a little bit of a bridge between generations, but certainly I find that the new generations, especially for the last 20 years, they are very different. I mean, I think it is kind of a different game, you may say. You may say it's a different world. So I don't know. I have been, of course, very lucky still maintain an active career, and especially in teaching. And so I've watched it evolve. I've watched it kind of grow. And certainly I find it really more challenging today. I mean, there are many elements, obviously, that makes it more challenging today for students. I mean, there are so many more graduates from conservatories today, and it's so competitive in this field. And what do people do, and how do people sustain their livelihood? It's all very difficult, obviously. So I find it more challenging, it seems, and I find that I certainly empathize for the students for today as they are, stepping into this field. I often feel that they really have to be sure they really are passionate about music. Because I know so many people who come into this field maybe for the fame, or maybe not really for the reasons for music. And I feel that they will suffer a little bit. And I often see that happen when people who graduate for years and then they realize they really are not meant for this field, and then they go to something else. But At the same time, I also see a lot of enthusiasm, especially in Asia, especially in China, that we have a lot of people who are excited about being in music, and I think that's a great thing. I think that's really fantastic. It's wonderful to have a lot of people who are really now understanding what it's really like to be a musician, because I feel like for some years, it's kind of like show business. And and it's strange, but I do hope, more people really take music seriously, and it's a wonderful world,
Yes.
so.
Yeah. And what kind of qualities do you think nowadays pianists need to especially have?
Well, again, what I think what pianists should have, perhaps is different than what the world wants sometimes. Sometimes the world wants something that's more memorable. Sometimes shock value may add some, profile. But I feel really, in order for today's musician to be successful, they obviously have to have substance. They have to have the real thing. It's a package of perhaps, musicianship, sensitivity, and also skills, because it's just the more and more the world is imposing a lot of burden on them. Just the number of concerts that they may have to play, or the size of the hall they have to play, or the amount of, let's say, concerto appearances they have to play now. It used to be, recitals are more popular, and nowadays recitals are actually, I don't know, somehow maybe it's not as popular as 30 years ago. Series are now offering more chamber music, not so many solo recitals. And so what happens is pianists survive by playing concertos, for example. And that's very taxing for our body, meaning that you also have to have a certain constitution that's able to handle day in and out of, it's like a real workout.
It's like a labor.
Yeah, it's like really a lot of labor. So I do think that it's kids today, just the demand, physical demand on them is very high. Certainly also emotional.
Yeah.
I find emotional demand is very high. So I often feel, I think these are probably aspects that people people overlook. People tend to overlook these aspects. That's, for example, emotional strength that a pianist should have, because it is hard, let's say, to be away from your close family, to be touring all the time, or to be, or sometimes just the feeling of being criticized, or the feeling of being alone. A lot of these can be a factor. And I think today it's interesting. I think the world has come to the realization that mental health is very important. Emotional support is very important. So these are things that, we are trying to address. 30 years ago, teachers don't talk about that. We don't talk about how you need to be strong mentally in order to, let's say, even win competitions. But it seems it's not just about skills anymore. Going through the 4 rounds of competitions, you have to be pretty tough. You have to be really mentally sharp and confident and all that. And that's not easy. That's not easy. And it's kind of, I don't play sports myself, but my father was a basketball coach, and so I've gotten used to sometimes sports analogies, and I see a lot of sports events, especially tennis and swimming, and I just see these people they have to get stronger, not just by their physical strength, but mental as well and emotional as well. All of that play into their games. So I find that more and more today, it seems really challenging, very challenging for pianists, because it's not just how you play, it's how you deal with a concert life, and then how you deal with, being away, being really not like a normal human being, because most people, they stay home, their schedule is fairly regular, but when you are on tour, it may not be like that, and you may have to be adjusting to jet lag all the time. So it's difficult. It can be difficult.
So do you think that this could be trained by experiences? So for example, doing more competitions or doing more concerts, or would you incorporate with other activities such as suggesting meditations or suggesting other hobbies would help along the way?
Oh, of course, yes, I do think, well, that's interesting. Of course, I guess the more traditional way for getting ready for a competition is by playing more for other people, whether it's in concert or privately, and so that's of course done. But you will notice that it's still different because you're playing for a live audience, and whether it's just 10 people or 400 people, it's still very different. And I think when you have the experience under your belt, of course you deal with things very differently. And so yes, I have said for as long as I remember teaching, which is even for auditions. Obviously you don't just come to auditions and play your pieces for the first time in front of people. You have to play it so many times. And so that is exactly how one gets ready. But emotionally, it's also difficult because, I think it's one thing to play it so many times, but it's always different when it's a real competition or when it's a real concert. It always somehow feels different. And so that experience does count. And obviously, I would say that is one way of dealing with it. As you mentioned, another way to deal with it is incorporate other aspects into their training, and meditation can be one of them. I have students who are also very interested in sports, and what happens is that helps them in some ways, because that helps them to understand how it relates, mentally, how to prepare themselves. So I think I think a lot of times well, at least I encourage it. This saying has been, there for years, that hopefully musicians don't spend all their time in practice rooms. They really should go out and do something and have a life, really have a life. And that's I would say it's still true today, probably even more so. I think in the old days, yes, you will find people who can basically live in the practice rooms for 8 and 9 hours, and they can produce such consistent playing for competitions, and that's okay. That was good. Today, I don't know about that anymore. It's just, there's so many complex elements about concerts and about competitions, and so it's really hard to pinpoint, exactly what is a formula. A lot of people may ask me for a formula, what is the formula for a successful pianist? It's really hard. Even when we think about the people that we know well today, were those formulas? No. Including Lang Lang or Wang Yujia or Zhang Holton. Zhang Holton, of course, won the competition, and he had to work very hard to maintain his career, and that he did, with success. But was it a formula, when these people happen to be able to replace somebody and, somehow become well-known overnight? That's not so easy. Yeah, that's not so easy. It's certainly not a formula. Sometimes it has something to do with luck as well. And the same thing with competitions. I think everything has to do with luck. A little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
So, do you think that family roles plays an important part of an artist's life?
I do think that family is important in that they should be supportive of the aspiring artist's goal and not to try to be demanding. Well, I see this a lot, especially in Asian culture. And sometimes it's very heartbreaking because I feel like the parents are really kind of making the kids do what they have missed in their life rather than honoring what the kids want to do. I think the kids' wishes really need to be honored. And in this case, they will actually thrive because it's what they want to do. And so, in a way, I think it's important how the family dynamics play out, especially in a person's career. It helps them to feel emotionally supported and not to be felt. I have witnessed so many cases where pianists are, they have so much emotional pressure. They feel like if they don't succeed in a competition that they are a failure, or they feel like they've wasted all their parents' money, or they felt like they have disappointed them in some way. I mean, even in a kind of a guilty way. And that to me is, well, it's just a shame, only because that doesn't help anybody to become better. I think for me, from my many years of experience, it's always been encouragement. It's always been support to the students that help them to feel secure in their path. And so certainly family background also play a big factor, meaning that, you know, when they understand why the kids are there to do what they love to do, it gives them confidence. And also there is a certain, I think, upbringing that would show and reflect in their performance as well. And so that's very important. The part that I guess you can all count that as family factors. But I think whether you come from, whether you come from good family, bad family, that doesn't really matter. I mean, we have to remember also Beethoven did not come from a wealthy family, right? But it's really what he loved to do, and it's his pure will that really made it happen. And so I think, you can almost imagine that you could do it without family support. But of course, it's harder. I mean, I also have students who are out on their own, doing this all on their own, and it's very difficult. And so, all I can do is really to provide the best support that I can for them. Both obviously providing tools for them to navigate through their life, but also, just giving them support, knowing that they're doing the right thing.
So you really see your students as a whole family?
I do. I mean, well, yes, I do. I mean, truly, I feel like I have raised a lot of children. Yes, I do. They are all very dear to me. And I mean, of course, some of them grow apart, but a lot of them, I think, treasure their relationship with me. And I'm grateful for that. I'm really grateful that there are many students that still call me and, obviously still seek my guidance sometimes. And so it's very nice. I
think that's the greatest thing as a teacher. That
Sure.
Feel the students are coming back.
Yes, it feels wonderful to know that they also treat you as a family member. So that's very nice. I mean, I certainly hope that the way that I help them in school, and certainly the way that I like to set up my studio at schools, give them a sense of family, give them a sense of the, because a lot of them are away from home, right? So.